Hey everyone, I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Now my plan is to talk about each of the Hunger Games books. The Hunger Games, Catching Fire and Mockingjay. I've read them all, I just completed this series. I'm going to talk about each one as much as I possibly can about what I liked and what maybe I didn't like so much. This is all in anticipation for me to finally read for me to finally read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which came out not too long ago. I'm really pumped to see what happens in this one. So it was actually my first time diving into this series. I had never picked up the books. I never saw the movies when they came out. I did end up seeing the movies a few years ago, but my memories of them were fading. I remembered only a few key moments, so I was pretty much going in fresh, almost completely blind. The reason I got into reading this series was I was trying to convince my friend to read the Stormlight Archive, and her favourite series was The Hunger Games, so you can thank her for this. She agreed to read Stormlight Archive if I read the entire Hunger Games series, and I've flown through it and she's only on book 2, but I can't blame her because those books are 10 times bigger than this. So what I really loved about the first Hunger Games book, The Hunger Games, I really loved how much time we spent in District 12 at the start of the book. We're getting introduced to Katniss, we're getting introduced to her district, what her district does for the capital. We're only hearing about the capital mostly through her conversations with Gale, and Gale's her best friend that she kind of escapes through the enclosure of their district to go hunting with. And you get good development of Katniss, of who she is as a person, how kind of naive she is. She's kind of accepted her lot in life, that this is how it is, the capital has everything, the districts do their job, and you keep your head down, you do the work you're meant to do, you go into the lucky draw of the Hunger Games each year, and hopefully you won't get in that and live a somewhat okay life. She's kind of accepted this. Her best friend Gale is really talking about escaping and leaving, and she can't even conceptualize doing something like that. And I love how it starts here. It shows that Katniss has not even considered anything else, and it's a great starting point for her character. Soon after this, we're thrown straight into the Reaping, which is where the district gathers and they pull out their names to see who's going to be in the next Hunger Games this year. And we get the iconic scene. Everybody knows it by now. We've seen the gifs, we've seen the clips, we've seen the memes. Primrose is called and Katniss volunteers as tribute and goes straight up, and so begins the unstoppable journey for Katniss. From this moment, there's no looking back whatsoever. I loved how fast the pace of the book was from this point onwards. She has to say goodbye to her loved ones. She meets her fellow tribute, Peter, who becomes, of course, the character we all know and love. We are thrown straight onto a train. Off we go to the capital. The Hunger Games are happening. And I was all in for the ride. I was all in for it at this point. This is where I think the first person perspective of the book really shines, because you were stuck in Katniss's head. You were this terrified 16, 17-year-old girl. I believe she's 16 in the first book. You're with her. You are thrown into this situation with her that she is not prepared for, and nobody could be prepared for. Being a massive fantasy fan, in case you haven't noticed, I love world building. So when we were off to the capital and we're just in the train and we're peeking out the window and seeing little bits and pieces, I was loving it. I love seeing the tech of the capital. I love seeing how people live. I love how she could request a meal and it's brought out straight away. I love the excess that the capital has. It's so extravagant, but it's so interesting to read about. The first person perspective of this story is totally a gift and a curse, because you're with Katniss the whole time. You really feel the intensity of the Hunger Games and you feel a very strong connection to her as a character. But the part of me who wants to see the world is stuck in one person, man. I want to see the capital. I want to see what's happening. When she's up on the roof with Peter just looking at over the cityscape of the capital, I'm like, oh, can we lean over? I want to see more. I want to see what's going on. What kind of tech do they have? What kind of lives do they lead? I really wanted to see this. But at the same time, Suzanne Collins did such a great job of teasing us with little details of, oh man, the shower that Katniss uses. I was like, dude, all these settings, that's so cool. I don't know if I'm just a nerd, but I love seeing all the tech of the capital. I love to see how extravagant the makeup was. I love to see how this side of humanity is living. So I love that, but I wanted more. I wanted more. I could see why you can't have it just yet, considering it's a trilogy. But I really did enjoy the parts I did get about it. And then we meet Haymitch, who is her mentor. Previous winners from other Hunger Games have to mentor the new tributes, and I love that. It's just so sick. Like the whole system of the Hunger Games is just so sick and awful. Now, I won't lie, when I started reading the Hunger Games and just knowing about the concept of the Hunger Games, I have to suspend my disbelief a little bit. I'm a bit conflicted on it because in some ways I totally understand how people can watch awful things on television if it's presented in the right way and framed as celebrities and things like this, but at the same time I know humanity's obviously gotten to a much worse point in the book, but I can't imagine it going to the point where we're watching kids kill each other for sport, more or less. It doesn't delve in too much of how the people of the capital feel about people in the districts, in terms of, do they still see them actually as humans like them, or are they like a subclass, not even human? I had to just suspend my disbelief a little bit to believe that this would have gone on for so long and people would have been that into it. But I was okay with doing that just to go along with the ride, and you know, it was fine. It's just maybe a little nitpick of mine. Anyway, so we meet Hamish, who's awesome. I love that he's so messed up from the games. It's so real. Of course, man, if I survived the Hunger Games and all these people I knew died and everything Hamish has been through, man, I'd be a drunk as well. And I love that they really have to kind of snap him out of it to get his attention, to actually bring him on board to helping them win and survive these games. Once again, I'll say I love how quick it is. We go straight to the Capitol, we're getting makeovers, we're getting outfits, we're getting press conferences, we're getting interviews, and oh my god, I love the guy who does the interviews. Caesar, I love Caesar. I love how he frames the interviews. It's so perfect how he does it, and of course I did remember him very strongly from the movies, and I think he was perfectly cast and brought to life so well, and I appreciate it even more reading the books now. The interview parts are so interesting and so great. I love how they get the Capitol invested in the characters and in the tributes that are going to fight to the death. It's so awful, but in such an interesting way. One of the main plot points of this book is how Katniss and Peter are kind of brought into this on-screen romance to help them survive the games, and it's pretty damn obvious that it's real from Peter. At this point with Katniss, it's a bit trickier because you can sense there's something between her and Gale, and you can also sense there's something between her and Peter, but it's too early to say. I felt like she was actually having genuine feelings for him at some points in this book. I'm like, come on, Katniss, you like him, but she's constantly umming and ahhing and telling herself that no, she doesn't, it's just for the cameras, and oh, what about Gale, and oh, Peter got me bread that one time, the bread flashback that's used all the time, the bread boy. So, you know, that is interesting. I did like how it's this whole thing that she has to play it up for the camera. And all I could think about was, man, if I was Gale watching this would be tough. I get why he's a brooding pain in the butt. I would be annoyed too. The moment I was really sold on Katniss as a character was when they're in the training center and they have to kind of display their skills to the game makers, and the game makers are up there eating their excessive amounts of food, not really paying attention to Katniss because she's last. And Katniss is kind of like, you know, screw these guys. And she just grabs her bow, and you guys, if you're watching this, you all know this moment where she shoots the arrow right at the game makers and it hits the apple between the pig's mouth, and the chapter ends with her like mic dropping the bow and leaving the center. It's just so perfect. I'm like, yeah man, I'm on board. Let's mess this Capitol up. Let's go. Man, and when we are dropped into the arena, it is like, you're not ready. You're straight into it. People are dying. Kids are getting killed in gruesome ways. I knew it was a YA book, and I probably underestimated how gruesome it was gonna get. It was pretty full on. Kids are dying. Kids are definitely getting stabbed. And yeah, it's scary. It's scary, and you're worried for Katniss. One of my nitpicks is I probably felt like it was a bit too safe for Katniss, or she kept getting saved at the last second, or if someone was going to kill her, instead of her having to kill that person, somebody else did it at the last minute, or she killed the person indirectly. I'm not sure whether this is because she didn't really have the heart to kill someone, which I do understand, or if they wanted to keep Katniss as a very, you know, clear good guy character that you could get behind. I wasn't too sure what the aim with that was, but for me, it did come across like we're keeping Katniss a bit too white when she probably should be a bit more grey on the character, like good to bad scale. This changes. This does change when her companion Rue, who reminds her so much of Prim, does get killed, and without even thinking for half a second, Katniss just one-shots the guy who does murder Rue, and this, you know, this scene is tragic. The whole chapter's following with Katniss making the flower pattern around Rue and singing the song and the whistling with the mockingjays. It's beautiful, and it's very affecting, and it was great. It was great. I mean, everyone loves Rue. How couldn't you love her? So innocent, and it just really highlights how tragic these games are, and also highlights, I'm like, how could people watch this? I'm not completely sold on that. I just can't believe it. Anyway, moving on. At this point, there's not many people left in the game. We're in the cave with Katniss and Peter for a considerable amount of time. It's kind of, the book slows down a bit here. I like that. A bit more introspection, a bit more playing it up for the camera, kissing Peter to get some food to fall from the sky. I liked it. I like these dynamics. She couldn't, you know, communicate with people from the outside world, so I like how she has to always consider, Katniss always has to consider, what's Haymitch thinking, what are my sponsors thinking, what's the audience thinking. I loved this aspect, that it wasn't just about survival, it was about creating a narrative to get support from the viewers. That was great. When it got down to the end, man, when those mutts came out, these like four-legged creatures, like I was like, okay, typical like monsters that are coming to kill our characters, okay, cool. But when they were noticing that the eyes were like the same eyes from the other tributes that have been killed, I was like, whoa, this is next level messed up. Now, I don't know if this is some capital genetic experiment stuff going on, or our characters are just going a bit crazy, understandably, but that was dark and I liked it. So we get to the point where Peter's in love and Katniss loves Peter and they don't want to kill each other. And, you know, the Hunger Games get stopped and says, oh, actually, both of you can win. And then, no, you can't win. Now we're going to kill each other. Okay, yeah. So basically they're allowed to both be victors. And, okay, I understand it. But, again, I'm going to have to be like, okay, we've had like 73 Hunger Games at this point. There's been no couple that has been compelling on camera to the point that people are invested, hence wanting them both to win. Like, I don't know, I just felt like, wow, this is really the first time? But, you know, I got over it, I moved on, I went along with it. And I'm glad it did happen because it creates like the entire story of the Hunger Games trilogy. Like, it has to happen. But again, my logical brain was just, I'm not trying to find plot holes, but it's what I thought of straight away. I'm like, really? They're gonna change the rules for the first time because we have a romance? Like, there must have been other romances, surely. Anyway, so this is where I was like, wow, that was a really great ride for a book. And I love the first person perspective, just locking me in and making sure I'm with her every second. I know how she's feeling, I know how intense it is. I felt the adrenaline, I felt worried for Katniss, I felt like it was going down, you know, and I loved that. I was like, that was a great ride. That was a great ride. The love like part was, yeah, it was fine. But I was there for like, wow, we're in the Hunger Games. And getting teased about the Capitol was what was really grabbing me. So I thought it was a great ride, I thought it was a really fun read. A really great story to be taken along with, but I was like, how are you gonna get me? How are you gonna get me in for this entire series? And then we kind of get to the post-Hunger Games section where Haymitch is like, you don't understand, Katniss. You've totally like spat in the face of the Capitol. President Snow is not gonna stand for this. And we kind of start to get glimpses of Snow, and I instantly fell in love with this evil dictator. I love that it kind of begins the rivalry between Katniss versus Snow, and I was like, okay, I like this. And then by the end, Katniss, in typical Katniss fashion, was a bit too, how do we say it, matter of fact towards Peter, being like, well, yeah, at least we don't have to play it up to the cameras anymore. That's so great, what a relief. And Peter's a bit like, oh, were you playing it up? And he kind of pulls away at this point, and he's like so despondent towards her. So I was like, okay, we've got like the beginnings of an uprising, perhaps something going wrong with the capital. Okay, I like this, and I liked this dynamic. I did get hooked to the dynamic of Katniss and Peter. You're like, is she doing this for the cameras? What's happening here? So I was like, okay, I'm on board for Catching Fire. We will be discussing that in the next one. We'll be talking about Catching Fire, and straight after that we will be talking about Mockingjay. If you really did enjoy me talking about Hunger Games, reading it for the first time, please let me know. Please stick around, we've got lots more to talk about, and I really hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you guys all in the next one.